Today, on Remote Cabin Radio, we journey into the shadowy depths of Native American lore, where myths and legends intertwine with the very fabric of the land. The Shawnee, Potawatomi, Menominee, Delaware, Penobscot, Abenaki, and Powhatan tribes, each with their own distinct connection to the earth, have passed down stories that stir the soul and haunt the imagination. Among these tales are the terrifying transformations of the Windago, or Windago, a once human figure twisted into a ravenous cannibal through the desperate act of consuming human flesh in times of starvation. Another creature that haunts the mountains of Kentucky is the Yeahoh, a being whose presence has struck fear into the hearts of those who have dared to venture into its domain. Western Folklore, Volume 16, January 1957, Number 1, recounts two fascinating tales collected by Leonard Roberts. These stories come from an isolated region of the Kentucky mountains, where strange and curious legends have persisted over time. Two tales, collected by Leonard Roberts, follow Curious Legend of the Kentucky Mountains. 4 or 5 versions of this curious and strange legend come into my collection over a period of about 6 years, 1948 to 1954, from an isolated region of the Kentucky mountains. At first, I did not know what to make of it, but having also collected a few versions of the Bear's Son story, type 301, minus the half-bear, half-man introduction, I guessed that this was that introduction now broken away and told separately. It now appears to be a distinct legend, since Dr. Archer Taylor refers me to the long search for American versions by Mr. Rudolph Altrocki. And now that I reflect on this item, I realize that it is not unique to Kentucky mountain folklore. During my youth in these mountains, it was not unusual to hear a rumor of some half-wild man, naked and hairy, being found in the woods, living close to animal state. This kind of Romulus-Remus legend seems to stick in the minds of the folk. But how this particular legend made its way into eastern Kentucky is a mystery to me. The following version was taken down in pencil in 1950 from the lips of Lee Maggard, who lived in a small cabin on the south slope of the Pine Mountain Range near the small lumber town of Putney, Harlan County, Kentucky. He had heard it on Maggard's branch, Leslie County. The Yeahoh. Once they was man out huntin' and he got lost, and after a while he began to get hungry. He come to a big hole in the ground, and he thought he would venture down into it. He went down in there, and he found that the old Yeahoh lived in there and had deer meat hanging up and other foods piled around the walls. The man was afraid at first, but Yeahoh didn't bother him, and he went toward that meat to get him some. The Yeahoh walked over and looked at the knife and said, "Yeahoh, Yeahoh," a time or two. He cut it off a piece of the meat, and it started eating it. Well, the man stepped over to the middle of the pit and took out his flint and built him up a fire, and the Yeahoh watched him and looked at the fire and at the flint and said, "Yeahoh, Yeahoh," again. The man put his meat on a stick and broiled him a nice piece and started eating it. The Yeahoh watched him and acted like it wanted a piece. The man cut it off a piece of the broiled meat and reached it over, and the Yeahoh commenced to eating it up and smacking its lips and saying, "Yeahoh, Yeahoh." Well, the man lived there with it a long time, and they got along all right. After so long they was a young un born to and it was half man and half Yeahoh, and the Yeahoh took such a licking to the man it wouldn't let him leave. He got to wanting to get away and go back home. One day he slipped off, and the Yeahoh followed him and made him go back. Went on that way for a good while, but he picked him a good time and slipped away. This time he got to the shore, where there was a ship ready to set sail. He got on this ship, and he looked and saw the Yeahoh comin' with the young'un. It screamed and hollered for him to come back, and when it saw he wasn't going to come, why, it just tore the baby in two and held it out one half to him and said, "Yeahoh, Yeahoh." He sailed on off and left it standing there. The version that Dr. Taylor refers to in my book, South from Hell for Satan, is called The Origin of Man. Another version was given to me by this teller's grandson. It has the same title and contents, except that the Yeahoh has 6 children and tears them all in twos and throws them after the embarked man. Another text, similar to the one given above, was accidentally erased from my tapes. The following text was recorded from Joe Couch, Appalachia, Virginia, in 1954. He had heard it from his people while he lived in Perry County, Kentucky. The hairy woman. One time, I's prowling in the wilderness, wandering about, kindly got lost, and so weak and hungry I couldn't go. When it began to get cool, I found a big cave and crawled back in there to get warm. Crawled back in and come upon a leaf bed, and I dozed off to sleep. I heard a nawful racket coming into that cave, and something come in and crawled right over me and laid down like a big old bear. It was a hairy thing, and when it laid down, it went chomp chomp chawing on something. I thought to myself, I'll see what it is and find out what it is eating. I reached over, and a hairy-like woman was there eating chestnuts, had about a half a bushel there. I got me a big handful of them and went to chawing on them too. Well, in a few minutes, she handed me over another big handful, and I eat chestnuts until I was kindly full and wasn't hungry anymore. Directly, she got up and took off and out of sight. Well, I stayed on there till next morning, and she come in with a young deer. Brought it in, and with her big long fingernails, she ripped its hide and skinned it, and then she sliced the good lean meat and handed me a bite to eat. I kindly slipped it behind me, afraid to eat it raw and afraid not to eat it being she give it to me. She'd cut off big pieces of deer meat and eat it raw. Well, I laid back, and the other pieces she give over as she eat her, and she was going to see I didn't starve. When she got gone again, I built me up a little fire and broiled my meat. After being hungry for 2 or 3 days, it was good cooked. Yes, buddy, she come in while I had my fire built grilling my meat, and she run right into that fire. She couldn't understand, because it kindly burnt her a little. She jumped back and looked at me like she was going to run through me. I said, "Uh-oh, I'm going to get in trouble now." Well, it was cold and bad out, so I just stayed another night with her. She was a woman, but was right hairy all over. After several days, I learnt her how to broil meat, and that fire would burn her. She got shy of the fire and got so she liked broiled meat and wouldn't eat it raw anymore. We went on through the winter that way. She would go out and carry in deer and bear. So I lived there about 2 years, and when we had a little kid, one side of it was hairy and the other side was slick. I took a notion I would leave there and go back home. I began to build me a boat to go away across the lake in. One time after I had left, I took a notion I would slip back and see what she was doing. I went out to the edge of the cliff and looked down into the mountain, and it looked like 2 or 3 dozen of hairy people coming up the hill. They was all pressing her, and she would push them back. They wanted to come on up and come in. I was scared to death, afraid they's going to kill me. She made them go back and wouldn't let them come up and interfere. Well, I took a notion to leave one day when my boat was ready. I told her one day I was going to leave. She followed me down to my boat and watched me get ready to go away. She was crying, wanting me to stay. I said, "No, I'm tired of the jungles. I'm going back to civilization again. Going back." When she knowed she wasn't going to keep me there, she just grabbed the little young'un and tore it right open with her nails, throwed me the hairy part, and she kept the slick side. That's the end of that story. Our journey ends in the shadowed recesses of Coos County, New Hampshire, a region known for its dense forests and rugged terrain. A chilling legend persists: the Woods Devils. These enigmatic entities have woven themselves into the fabric of local folklore, haunting the dark, untamed woods and sparking a mix of fear and fascination. The Woods Devils are described as sinister, elusive beings, their forms often obscured by the dense foliage and perpetual twilight of the forest. Accounts of their appearance vary, but they are generally depicted as shadowy figures, moving with an unnatural speed and stealth that renders them almost invisible. Witnesses have reported glimpses of these figures darting through the woods, always just out of reach, leaving behind an unsettling aura of dread. Strange, eerie sounds are commonly associated with the Woods Devils. Hushed whispers, the crunch of footsteps on fallen leaves, or the inexplicable feeling of being watched all contribute to the pervasive sense of unease. These sounds are often accompanied by a growing sense of terror that creeps up on those who venture too far into the forest's depths. There are unsettling tales of people who have ventured into the woods only to disappear without a trace, their fates unknown and feared to be linked to the malevolent presence of the Woods Devils. Some stories even speak of mysterious glowing lights seen in isolated parts of the forest, believed to be the work of these sinister beings, luring or misleading unwary travelers. Rooted in a tradition of folklore that reflects the deep-seated fears of untamed nature, the legend of the Woods Devils serves as a stark reminder of the dangers lurking in the wilderness. These tales, rich in mystery and suspense, have evolved from local superstitions and indigenous folklore, contributing to the rich tapestry of New England's ghost stories and cryptid legends. The Woods Devils of Coos County stand as a chilling testament to the power of folklore to shape our perceptions of the world. They remind us of the darkness that lingers in the unexplored corners of the forest, perpetuating a sense of awe and trepidation that endures through the generations. Though sightings have dwindled since the 1930s, the legend of the Woods Devils continues to linger in the minds of the locals. As the mists of time recede, the stories handed down through generations continue to pulsate with dark enchantment. The ancient legends woven into the very fabric of tribal folklore cast a haunting glow upon the cultural identity of the Mescalero, Chiricahua, Navajo, and Chacarilla tribes. Whether rooted in grim reality or conjured from the deepest corners of imagination, they persist in their ability to captivate and enthrall. In their shadows, the echoes of long-forgotten fears and unsolved mysteries still linger, beckoning us to explore the enigmatic and perilous realms that lie just beyond the veil of the known world.